Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 2 of Tirreno Adriatico. 219 kilometers long, about 135 miles. It's a monstrous stage. And that is why all the pro riders pick Tirreno Adriatico over Paris-Nice. That and of course the sunshine, quiet, smooth roads, less stress, much less stress than Paris-Nice. If you've been watching stages 1 and 2, you know what I'm talking about, because Paris-Nice was just chaos back there and stressful from kilometer 0 all the way to the finish. Tirreno Adriatico is a little more mellow. It's a little more relaxed. Everybody can chillax for a little bit, keep it calm and easy. And that's why we see the breakaway of 5 riders up the road. 2 riders from Bardiani and 2 riders from Iolo Cometa. Those riders, Jonathan Cannavaro from Bardiani, he's got his teammate there with Davide Gaburo. And then the Iolo Cometa riders, Davide Baez and Francisco Gaviez. They're represented up there. And along for company is drone hopper rider Umberto Maringo. Now, Umberto Maringo, we see him often in the breakaways in these Italian races, and so he's up there representing his team, and this makes a lot of sense. They got small teams up here. Here we go. It's Tirreno Adriatico. They let the 5 small teams go away. The rest of the guys get to relax. They get a lot of training miles in the legs, and then they'll get to open up the legs later at the end of this 219-kilometer stage. Now, the race is going nice and slow and easy, so the commentators from GCN, they're chit-chatting on a lot of the first 70 kilometers of this stage when the TV's on, and it's Robbie McEwen, my old teammate from Lotto, who's new to the GCN network. Now, yesterday, Carlton Kirby had commented about Richie Porte's lack of descending skills being a little bit less than impeccable. And Robbie McEwen, of course, being Australian, he talked there with Richie Porte from Ineos, and they had a little chit-chat, and Richie Porte said, "Hey, I'm not the fastest, but I'm safe." I don't think you can use those words at the pro peloton and consider yourself a good descender if you got to say, "I'm not the fastest, but I'm safe." And then on top of that, Richie Porte says, "I can hold my own. I had to in order to be able to win the races that I did." And Richie Porte, I love you, man, but you cannot descend. Carlton Kirby, you are 100% correct. Richie Porte cannot go downhill. Guys, I'm telling you firsthand, I was on his wheels. And I guarantee you that the races that he has won, he probably had a teammate up there to bridge those gaps after he opened it up. I can remember many times throughout the Tour de France being behind Richie Porte and watching him open up gaps throughout the whole descent. And they were massive gaps. And either it was Richie closing it, sprinting out of the corner to have to close it and wasting a ton of energy, or most likely it was his BMC teammates back there that were on the front drilling it like crazy to close it, because it was a massive gap. Not a little gap, but a massive one. And it was his big, large, powerful teammates closing the gap that Richie opened up. So you are not a good descender, Richie Porte. I hate to say that because you know I love you. And I think you're one of the riders out here that should have 1, if not 2 or 3 Grand Tour wins under your belt at this point in time, but just have bad luck for it, and some of it probably given to you from your descending skills. So now let's get back into the racing, because with 60 kilometers to go, when we're on the climb to the first KOM here at Tirreno Adriatico, we're going to see the first big knucklehead rider from Bardiani, and it's Jonathan Cannavaro, who's throwing in the attack with 3 kilometers to go. Now, he has some company with Iolo Cometa, Davide Baez following tightly on his wheel. But the problem is, there's only 5 guys in this break. So you have 2 Iolo Cometa riders, and then you have 2 Bardiani riders. And so it doesn't make sense when you're going up the road, because who did you drop? You each dropped one of your teammates, and there's only 5 in the break. And now you just reduced it down to a 2-man break from 5, and you still got 60 kilometers to go. Now, on top of that, Jonathan does this knucklehead ride for like a kilometer on the front until Davide just attacks him and goes solo and steals the KOM points. Now, to add a little bit of salt on the wound, Jonathan gets caught from his teammate behind and from the other Iolo Cometa rider, and then gets attacked. And the Iolo Cometa rider, Francisco Gaviz, he attacks, goes up the road and bridges to his teammate. Now we got 2 Iolo Cometa riders at the front with 60 kilometers to go. What are you guys going to do? You might as well have stayed together, but okay, you won the KOM points, but just sit up, make the group back to 5 again, and try to work to the finish. Instead, the two Ilo Cometa riders are up their team time trial and just burning a ton of energy when it was obvious you were going to get caught anyways. This is Tirreno Adriatico, and there's a ton of sprinters here because they're all getting ready for the classics that are starting next weekend. Now, with 35 kilometers to go, we start seeing some battling and a little bit of increase in pace from the pro peloton back there. And with 32 kilometers to go, we see the first big casualty. It's Mark Cavendish coming out the back, and he is suffering on a climb that is not that steep, and the pace is not going that hard. Over the top of that climb, he'll have a couple teammates wait for him. They'll get him back on, but Mark Cavendish will not have a spectacular sprint finish at today's stage 2 of Tirreno Adriatico. He'll finish way back. With about 30 kilometers to go, there's a time sprint bonus. And now we see Tadej Pogačar. He lights it up on the pedals and takes the third place bonuses for 1 second bonus over Remco Evenepoel. Now remember, yesterday during the time trial after it finished here on the butterfly effect, I explained to you guys that it was going to turn into a fight for time bonuses, and Tadej Pogačar is the first one to put his foot down and take the first time bonuses to gain 1 second on Remco Evenepoel. Now, we're only talking about a 7-second advantage Remco had to begin with, so 1 second's quite valuable at this point in time when the other time bonuses coming up at the end of these stages, when we're talking 10, 6, and 4. Now, when you look at it, Tadej Pogačar might not have to win a stage. He could get second on a stage. He's tied for points now, and they'll go back to the split time differences in the time trial to decide who's race leader. So keep that in mind. That 1 second time bonuses was huge on today's stage, and Tadej Pogačar took it. So Remco Evenepoel, you got to stay a little bit sharper, because when I rewind the tape just a little bit, we'll see Julian Alaphilippe, who was right there near Tadej Pogačar's wheel when Tadej took off, and Julian Alaphilippe just let him go. So keep that in mind. Could be a big decisive factor later here in Tirreno Adriatico, because I think it's going to be a race won by only a few seconds at best. Now, let's get back to the racing, because up front, with 20 kilometers to go, there's the last difficult section on this stage 2, and it's about a 4-kilometer climb at about 4%, maybe 5% in sections, and it's UAE Team Emirates who is the next knucklehead on today's stage 2. It's Marc Soler. The Spanish rider, he's new to UAE Team Emirates. I'm not sure if this was a team plan or what, but he's throwing in an attack with 20 kilometers to go up the climb. Problem is, this isn't a difficult climb. You look back at the field, they're curb to curb, super wide, so you know everybody back there has got a great draft, and all the sprinters are still staying rested up this climb. Marc Soler, not only was he crazy enough to attack, but then he was crazy enough to drop the Cofidis rider that was along that may have been able to help him after the climb. Soler flies by the two breakaway companions of Ilo Cometa, who are finally getting caught by the group and out the back. And then it's Marc Soler that's just going solo for as long as he can. He'll stay out there all the way till 3 kilometers to go, while the field in the back really starts to heat up with about 7 kilometers to go. There's all the teams lined up across the road. Israel Startup Nation's there. Intermarché is there. Lotto, Archaic, Samsic. They got the full host of World Tour teams on the front, and you know Marc Soler is not going to be able to stay off. Little bit of interesting fact, just before 3 kilometers, the road widens up just a little bit. Now, when you're going down curb to curb, the riders need to use every bit of space of the road they can. Whenever the rider's in the back of the front group, and normally when everyone's racing, what they're doing when they're stuck behind 2, 3, 4 rows back from the front, they're always peeking up, looking over the rider's shoulder in front of them and trying to see if the road is going to open up any. So the riders are always kind of lifting up and stretching. Me being only 5'10", I always had to like really stretch up there to look over the riders, because some of these guys are 6'2", 6'3", 4 riders. So I got to stretch in order to see if there's any advantage in the road coming up that I might be able to take advantage. Now with 3.5 kilometers, there is that advantage where the road opens up on the left side for another lane, and it's only about 100, 200 meters. So you got to take advantage of it. You'll see it in the picture here as they're 2-lane wide. As soon as that lane opens up, all the riders from the back know it, and they're sprinting into that parking lane there so that they can get to the front for one last ditch effort before the 3-kilometer left turn comes up near the finish. Now, when we go into the left, it's the World Time Trial Champion, yesterday's Stage 1 winner, Filippo Ganna, that's first through that corner, and he does a fabulous job right then and there. That's where we see Marc Soler getting caught doing, let's call it 17-kilometer, big effort of knuckleheadish work expended throughout this stage for zero reason whatsoever. As they catch Marc Soler, now we start seeing all the sprinter teams on the front. FDJ, who was really uncontrolled from about 20 kilometers all the way till about 2.5, now they're starting to lose control of the field. With 2.5 kilometers, we see Alpecin Phoenix come up to the front, and they're leading out their man Tim Merlier. Tim Merlier hasn't won anything throughout this 2022 season, but if you remember correctly, he dominated tons of races last year in the sprint, and we're talking about Giro stages and Tour de France stages along with Belgium Classic races. So today, Alpecin Phoenix is in full effect trying to help Tim win his first stage of 2022. Now, along at the same point in time, 2-kilometer mark, we're going to see Total Energies, Peter Sagan's team up there. He is in the mix here at Tirreno Adriatico with his team on the front, and Peter looking in fantastic spot with 2 kilometers to go. With 1 kilometer to go, looks like no one has control of the field. And then with 800 meters, we see double road world champion Julian Alaphilippe leading Casper Asgreen and Davide Ballerini to the front. He'll take Casper all the way to about 500 meters to go right before the right and left chicane into the finish. Now with Julian Alaphilippe dropping off Casper Asgreen near the front, Casper accelerates behind on Davide Ballerini's wheel. It's Peter Sagan and Tim Merlier that are boxing for the wheel. Sagan wins just like he normally does. It looks like his old self is coming back here at Tirreno Adriatico as he takes second position in the lead-out train coming to the finish. Casper Asgreen will take control at the front, going in 400 meters into the right turn, followed by the quick left turn with 300 meters to go. It's Quick Step at the front. Casper Asgreen's drilling hard. Ballerini will start a sprint at about 175 meters with a big acceleration. He looks like he's got a shot at the win, but Peter Sagan started his acceleration. As Ballerini starts to fade, Peter Sagan now is in the front row, ready to win Stage 2 of Tirreno Adriatico until the legs give out on him, and then it's Tim Merlier that accelerates fast, comes through with a spectacular Stage 2 win. On his wheel was the Bike Exchange sprinter Caden Grove, trying to hold on for dear life to get second, but he backs off the pedals with only about a meter to go, and it was the super fast young kid Jumbo Visma's Olaf Koy back there, who came from like 11, 15 spots back with only about 300 meters to go. Flew by to nip Caden Groves for second place on today's stage. Caden Groves has to settle for third, and Peter Sagan, he's got some fitness back because he's fourth on today's stage. His battling skills are still there. His instincts to jump for the line is right on target. He just didn't quite have the legs when you're talking about comparing them to Tim Merlier, Caden Groves. And wow, Olaf Koy, that boy's legs are absolutely flying to get second on today's stage from so far back. I'll show you pictures. He's back in 11th spot with about 200, 250 meters to go, sometimes completely out of the picture on today's race, and then just flies by on the left side all the way up to get second on today's stage. Robbie McEwen, who's a legend. I told you I was teammates with Robbie McEwen. I love him. Listening to him commentate was fabulous. He said one thing. Now, I'm not certain if he said it in the wrong way or if I just disagree with him. He said it's one thing to come from the back through the draft and get second. It's a whole nother thing to win from the front. Okay, that's 100% true. I agree with all that. But then he said, we'll have to see if Olaf is really that strong where he can win from the front. When you go back to the UAE Tour sprint stages, I can tell you fact, this kid is something special. He was in the win multiple times from 500, 400, 300, 200, all the way to the finish as he was passing guys in the win to get top 5 places at UAE Tour. And when he's here, the only question in my mind, first, he has to get a little bit more cagey like Peter Sagan in terms of fighting for position, because we all know Sagan can fight for position better than anyone in the field. If he has that, if he can learn that trade, if he can get a team that can lead him out to the finish, then we can find out if he just has that instant acceleration snap that these pure sprinters need in order to win. I don't question, like Robbie McEwen said, if he's strong enough. This kid is strong enough. He is phenomenal. I mean, amazing. I'd sent out some tweets during the UAE Tour for you fans to keep an eye on him, because that's how amazed I was at his skills. And when I see it here, there is no doubt he's strong enough. Now we just need to see a little bit of maturity in terms of your placement in the peloton when the sprint starts. And then we're going to see this kid win some races, because Olaf is magnificent back there. For sure, his win is just around the corner. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Butterfly Effect, because there's a lot more stages to come. Today's general classification change was mainly just Tadej Pogacar taking 1 second on Remco Evenepoel. So we know there's time bonuses are going to be huge throughout this week of racing. I'll see you guys on the next edition starting tomorrow with Stage 3. Like and subscribe. See you then.